Making this miniature magazine rack or yarn holder is really easy and only requires some popsicle sticks and basic tools. You can completely customize the look based on your fabric and paint choice. There are 3 common sizes of popsicle sticks, and I'll be using the middle size, which is 5/8 of an inch wide. I measured 1 3/4 inches from the end of the popsicle stick and used my miter shears to cut it. Then I cut off an extra 1/4 inch to make them 1.5 inches long. When you're making custom things, it's smart to measure against the item you'll be using it with, and when I tried the 1.75 inch long sticks, they were too tall for the sofa, but 1.5 inches is just right. Next, I'm cutting a couple side pieces to attach the end pieces. You could use a bamboo skewer, coffee stir stick, a square toothpick, a round toothpick, or even a Q-tip for this. Just use whatever you have. I'm using a square toothpick. I'm cutting my toothpick to the appropriate length, and I don't want to include any of the tapers, so I'm starting the measurement after the taper ends. I cut my side pieces 1 1/4 inches long, but make sure that works in the area you plan to use your basket in. After you cut your pieces, line up the ends and make sure they're the same length. Mine weren't, so I sanded them until they matched each other. If the side pieces aren't the same length, the ends will be crooked and it won't look right, so make sure they're the same length before proceeding. You can leave the end pieces plain, but I like to add a little bit of detail using my hole punch. I start by finding the center of my side piece and I make a little pencil mark. Then I line up the edge of the hole punch with the edge of the popsicle stick and punch a hole. Then I use my hole punch to punch a hole on either side of the original hole. I trace the pattern onto the other end piece to make sure each side matches. With all 4 of my simple pieces cut, I'm ready for paint. This basket would be tricky to paint after assembly because of the hanging fabric basket, so I'm painting it beforehand. I like to hold the pieces with tweezers and paint both sides at the same time to reduce the risk of the thin wood warping. Maybe I was channeling Ira Bentley from Bentley House Miniatures when I chose this brown color, but you can completely change the look and feel of this basket depending on your paint choices and fabric. After the paint dried, I used matte Mod Podge to seal the end pieces only. I didn't bother sealing my toothpicks because they'll mostly be covered in fabric, but that's a personal choice. I coated one side with matte Mod Podge, and while the Mod Podge was still wet, I flipped it over and painted the other side. I really love this fabric I found in my scrap box. The pattern is a bit out of scale, but I love the exaggerated lines because it looks like a tapestry or a carpet bag, and it really goes with the retro look I'm going for. Now I'm preparing to add the side pieces, which will transform this strip of fabric into a hanging basket. I cut a strip of fabric 1 inch wide and about 3.5 inches long. I placed the side piece on the end with about 3/4 of an inch overhang. I wanted to use hot glue for this because it grabs quickly. I left some overhang at the end to fold over because you will be able to see the inside of the basket, and I didn't want the unfinished inner fabric showing. To finish the other side, I folded the fabric over the side piece and used a clip to hold it. I wanted to make sure it's about 2 inches long so the basket has an appropriate amount of hang before I glued it in place. If you have fray check, this would be a great place to use it, but since I don't, I'm using a bit of white glue on the edges. This will help prevent loose threads in the future. You could also back the fabric with fusible web or hem the sides to prevent fraying. This entire project is a series of very simple steps, but this is perhaps the most important one. I need to give the fabric basket a curve before I install it on the end pieces. So I rub some white glue on the fabric and wrap it around a wooden dowel. Once the glue on the fabric dries, the basket will be in its hanging position, and it makes it very easy to glue it to the end pieces. I used a hairdryer to speed up the drying of the glue and peeled it off of my wooden dowel. Assembly is really easy with the preformed basket. All I did is add a bit of tacky glue to the side pieces and press them onto the end piece. Once the other side is glued on, make sure it's not sticking too far out or too far in where it's touching the basket. Adjust it while the glue is still wet, so it's straight up and down. You can fill it with whatever you want. I created it as a yarn basket, but now I'm going to use it to hold some newspapers. If you'd like to display a miniature in your basket, but it ends up being too short, you can stuff the bottom of the basket with some aluminum foil or paper towel to give the miniature some height. This simple basket only took me about 10 minutes to make. Check out this video to see how I made these sewing miniatures and also this popsicle stick wall shelf.